Chapter 1. The Unseen Border. The stellar chorus hummed through the void, its sleek hull cutting through the star-dusted expanse like a knife through silk. Inside the command bridge, Captain Zara Khan stood with her arms crossed, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display flickering before her. The ship's experimental hyperspace engine pulsed with a steady rhythm, a testament to human ingenuity and a gamble she'd staked her career on. Beyond the reinforced viewport, the galaxy stretched out in infinite silence, a tapestry of light and shadow that whispered promises of discovery. For a moment, Zara allowed herself to breathe, to believe this mission might finally bury the ghosts of her past. "Status report," she said, her voice steady but edged with an impatience only her crew could detect. Talia Voss, the ship's chief engineer, glanced up from her console, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Hyperspace core stable, Captain. We're hitting 98% efficiency. Another hour, and we'll be the first humans to cross the Orion Veil." Zara nodded, her lips twitching into the ghost of a smile. The Orion Veil, a nebulous frontier no human ship had breached, was their target. A proving ground for the stellar chorus and its crew. She'd fought tooth and nail to secure this mission, to show Earth that humanity could reach beyond its cradle without bowing to fear or failure. But beneath her calm exterior, a memory clawed at her, the scream of tearing metal, the blinding flash of an exploding cockpit, and her brother's voice fading into static. She'd been too late to save him then. She wouldn't be too late now. "Captain." Ravi Patel's voice broke her reverie. The ship's acoustics specialist leaned over his station, his brow furrowed. "I'm picking up an anomaly in the audio sensors. It's faint, but it's not background noise." Zara turned to him, her curiosity piqued. Ravi was an oddity among the crew, a musician turned scientist. His presence a reminder that this mission wasn't just about engineering or exploration, but about pushing the boundaries of what humanity could imagine. "Define, not background noise," she said. He hesitated, adjusting his headset. "It's organic, like a heartbeat, but bigger, much bigger." Before Zara could respond, the bridge shuddered, the holographic display flared red, and a chorus of alarms erupted. Talia swore under her breath, her hands flying across her console. "Hyperspace core's offline. Something's locking us down. External force. Biosignature detected." "Biosignature?" Zara's stomach tightened. "In deep space?" The viewport answered before Talia could. Beyond the ship, the stars seemed to ripple, as if the fabric of space itself was breathing. Then, with a grotesque grace, a massive form materialized, a living vessel, its hull a writhing mass of sinew and luminescent tendrils. It dwarfed the stellar chorus, stretching kilometers across the void, its surface pulsing like a leviathan roused from slumber. Zara's breath caught. This wasn't a ship, it was a creature. "Incoming transmission," Ravi said, his voice tight. He patched it through without waiting for her order. The main screen flickered, revealing a figure that made Zara's skin crawl. High Arbiter Silax stood, or rather, hovered, within a chamber of glistening organic walls. His form was a hybrid horror, a humanoid torso of pale, translucent flesh fused with metallic limbs. His face a mask of cold symmetry with no eyes, only a slit where a mouth should be. When he spoke, his voice reverberated like a chorus of discordant tones, translated instantly by the ship's systems. "Unidentified vessel," Silax intoned. "You have breached the sovereign territory of the Celestial Concord. Your mechanical contraption is an affront to the natural order. Surrender your systems and submit to assimilation, or be eradicated." Zara's jaw tightened. She'd faced threats before, pirates, rogue ice, even Earth's own bureaucrats, but this was different. This was alien, ancient, and utterly certain of its dominance. She stepped forward, her boots ringing against the deck. "This is Captain Zara Khan of the Earth vessel Stellar Chorus. We're on a peaceful exploration mission. We didn't intend to trespass. State your terms." Silax tilted his head, as if amused by her defiance. "The Concord does not negotiate with primitives. Your technology, crude, lifeless machines, violates the harmony of the galaxy. Disassemble your vessel and accept our biomatrix. Refusal is irrelevant. Compliance is inevitable." The screen darkened, but the living ship outside pulsed brighter, its tendrils extending toward the stellar chorus. A faint hum filled the bridge, and the hull groaned under an invisible grip. Talia slammed a fist against her console. They're using some kind of biotractor field. It's fusing with our systems, shutting us down cell by cell. Zara's mind raced. She could feel the weight of her crew's eyes on her, waiting for a decision. Surrender meant losing everything, the ship, the mission, their freedom. It meant failing again, just like she'd failed her brother when his fighter exploded in Earth's last war. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms. No, not this time. Options, she snapped, turning to her team. Talia shook her head. I can't break the field with brute force. It's adapting faster than I can counter. Ravi piped up, his voice trembling but resolute. Captain, that sound I picked up, it's coming from their ship. If it's organic, maybe we can disrupt it. Sound travels through living tissue differently than metal. Zara's eyes narrowed. It was a long shot. But she'd built her career on long shots. Do it, Talia. Back him up. I want every ounce of power we've got rerouted to the external arrays. As Ravi and Talia scrambled to their tasks, Zara returned her gaze to the viewport. The alien vessel loomed closer, its tendrils coiling like a predator savoring its prey. She could almost hear her brother's voice in the back of her mind. You're too stubborn. Zara, one day it'll kill you. Maybe he was right, but today, that stubbornness was all she had. Ready, Ravi called, his fingers poised over his controls. I've got a low-frequency pulse queued up. It won't destroy them, but it might shake their grip. Do it, Zara ordered. The stellar chorus thrummed as the pulse fired, a deep, resonant wave that rippled through the void. The alien ship shuddered, its tendrils retracting slightly, and for a moment, the pressure on the hull eased. Talia whooped, it's working. Biofields down to 60%. But the victory was short-lived. The screen flared back to life. Silax's form dominating the display. Your resistance is futile, he said, his voice now laced with a cold fury. You have delayed the inevitable. Our enforcers are en route. Prepare for dissolution. The transmission cut out, and beyond the viewport, space warped again as smaller bioships emerged from the shadows. Their forms sleek and predatory. Zara's heart pounded, but her face remained a mask of steel. She turned to her crew, her voice cutting through the rising panic. We're not done yet. Get me a plan, and get it fast. We didn't come this far to kneel. The stellar chorus trembled under the shadow of the Concorde. But within its walls, a spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. For Zara Khan, this wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight to prove that humanity's voice would not be silenced. Chapter 2. Voices of the Machine. The bridge of the stellar chorus buzzed with frantic energy, a stark contrast to the eerie silence beyond its hull. The bioships of the celestial Concorde hung in the void like vultures circling a wounded animal, their tendrils twitching with predatory intent. Inside, Zara Khan paced before the command console, her mind a storm of calculations and memories. The low-frequency pulse had bought them a reprieve, but it wouldn't last. She could feel the weight of her crew's trust pressing down on her. And with it, the echo of her brother's last transmission. Hold the line. Zara, hold it for me. Talk to me, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. What's our next move? Talia Voss wiped sweat from her brow, her hands trembling as she wrestled with the ship's diagnostics. Their biofields were forming. Captain, it's slower now, maybe 40% strength, but it's adapting to the pulse. We've got minutes, not hours. Zara turned to Ravi Patel, who sat hunched over his audio station, his headset pressed tight against his ears. His fingers hovered over the controls, hesitant but alive with purpose. Ravi, you said that sound came from their ship. Can we use it again? Something stronger? Ravi swallowed, his dark eyes flickering with doubt. He wasn't a soldier or an engineer, he was a musician. Dragged into this mission because of a wild theory about acoustics in space. Back on Earth, in the refugee camps where he'd grown up, he'd played melodies on a battered synth to drown out the screams of war. Now, those same instincts were all he had to offer. I think so, he said. That heartbeat I picked up, it's not just noise. It's their ship's core, like a nervous system. If we can hit it with the right frequency, we might disrupt it completely. Talia snorted, not looking up from her console. Might? We need more than might, Music Man. Those things out there aren't waiting for your encore. Enough, Zara snapped, though her tone softened as she met Ravi's gaze. Give me a plan, not a debate. What do you need? Ravi took a deep breath, forcing his hands to steady. The external arrays can handle a stronger signal, but it'll take more than raw noise. I need to analyze their biosignature, find a resonance point. Something that'll shake them apart without frying our own systems. Talia raised an eyebrow, finally pausing her work. Resonance? Like shattering a glass with a high note? Exactly, Ravi said, a spark of excitement breaking through his nerves. Their ships are alive. Living tissue has harmonic weaknesses, frequencies it can't withstand. We just need to find theirs. Zara nodded, her mind already racing ahead. Talia, can you boost the arrays? I can, Talia said, her voice grudging but resolute. But it'll drain power from the shields. If this fails, we'll be naked out here. It won't fail, Zara said, more to herself than to them. She couldn't let it fail, not with the Concord's enforcers closing in. Not with her crew's lives on the line. Get to work. As Talia rerouted power, Ravi patched his audio sensors into the ship's mainframe, his fingers flying across the controls. The faint thrum of the alien heartbeat filled the bridge, a deep, pulsating rhythm that seemed to seep into the walls. He closed his eyes, letting it wash over him like a song from his past. In the camps, he'd learned to hear the world differently, to find beauty in chaos. Hope in despair. Now, he listened for weakness. There, he muttered, isolating a spike in the signal. It's cycling at 32 Hz. But there's a harmonic overlap at 128. That's our target. Talia glanced over, her skepticism fading as she saw the data. Okay, I'll give you the juice. But we've got one shot. Those tendrils are at 2 kilometers and closing. Zara stepped to the viewport, staring down the bioships. Their forms were grotesque yet mesmerizing, hulks of flesh and light. Their surfaces rippling with veins that glowed in sickly green. She wondered what kind of minds had birthed such monstrosities, and whether they'd ever known fear. Do it now, she said. Ravi nodded, his hand hovering over the execute key. This isn't just a pulse anymore. It's a voice. Our voice. He pressed down, and the stellar chorus sang. A wave of sound erupted from the ship's arrays. Invisible but palpable, a low roar that climbed into a piercing wail. The bioships recoiled, their tendrils thrashing as if in pain. On the bridge, the crew braced as the deck vibrated beneath them, the sound reverberating through their bones. Zara gripped the console, watching as cracks spider webbed across the nearest alien hull. Bioluminescent fluid leaking into the void. It's working, Talia shouted, her voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. Their fields collapsing, 10% and dropping. But the victory was bittersweet. The screen flared back to life, and High Arbiter Silax's eyeless face filled the display. His metallic limbs twitched, and his voice carried a new edge, anger. Or perhaps something closer to curiosity. You wield crude tools with surprising cunning, he said, but your defiance only hastens your end. Our vanguard approaches. Your machine will be dust. The transmission cut out, and the viewport revealed the truth of his words. Space warped again, and a dozen more bioships emerged, smaller, sleeker, their forms bristling with spiny protrusions that glowed with lethal intent. Zara's heart sank, but her resolve hardened. She'd faced worse odds in the war, outnumbered, outgunned, and still alive. Options, she barked, turning to her crew. Talia shook her head, her earlier bravado gone. Shields are at 20%. We can't take a hit from that many. Ravi pulled off his headset, his face pale but determined. We can't fight them head on, Captain. But what if we don't have to? That signal. I think it's more than a weapon. It's a signature. If we can mimic it, amplify it, we might confuse them. Buy us time to run. Zara studied him, seeing the flicker of hope in his eyes. It was a gamble, but so was everything else she'd done today. How long? 5 minutes, Ravi said, maybe less. With Talia's help. Do it, Zara ordered, then turned to Talia. Get those nanites online. If we're going to sing, let's make it loud. As the crew sprang into action, Zara returned her gaze to the approaching fleet. The bioships advanced with relentless precision. their tendrils coiling like a noose tightening around her ship. She clenched her fists, the memory of her brother's voice echoing louder now. Hold the line. She would, even if it meant screaming into the void until the stars themselves heard her. Outside, the Concorde closed in, but within the stellar chorus, a new song was taking shape, one of defiance, ingenuity, and the unbreakable will to survive. Chapter 3. The Songbird's Cage. The stellar chorus streaked through the void, its engines straining under the desperate push to escape the encroaching bioships of the Celestial Concorde. On the bridge, Zara Khan gripped the edge of the command console, her knuckles white as she watched the tactical display. The smaller, spiny vessels were gaining, silent hunters in a sea of stars, their bioluminescent spines flaring with menace. The soundwave trick had shaken them, but it hadn't stopped them. Time was slipping through her fingers, just as it had years ago when her brother's ship burned up in Earth's sky. Distance to the nearest jump point? She asked, her voice taut. Talia Voss didn't look up from her console, her fingers a blur. 3 minutes at current speed. Captain, but our shields are at 15%. One hit, and we're done. Zara's jaw clenched. She could hear the unspoken question in Talia's tone. Can you get us out of this? She had to. Failure wasn't an option, not again. Ravi, how's that signal mimic coming? Ravi Patel adjusted his headset, his face slick with sweat. Almost there. I've got their biosignature locked. 32 Hz baseline with a 128 overlay. If I can loop it through the arrays, they might think we're one of them. But it's a guess, Captain. I've never played hide and seek with aliens before. Do it, Zara said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. She trusted Ravi's instincts, even if he didn't trust them himself. He'd proven his worth with that first pulse. Now she needed him to sing them out of this mess. The bridge hummed as Ravi executed the command, a low, throbbing tone pulsing from the ship's arrays. On the tactical display, the bioships hesitated, their tendrils curling inward as if confused. Zara held her breath, watching as the distance between them widened ever so slightly. It's working, Talia muttered, a rare note of awe in her voice. They're slowing down. But before Zara could exhale, a new alert blared. Ravi yanked off his headset, wincing. Incoming. Something's docking with us. Portside airlock. Zara spun toward the viewport, her heart sinking as a small organic pod detached from the nearest bioship and latched onto their hull with a wet, sucking sound. Weapons? She asked. Talia shook her head. Offline. That pulse drained everything but the essentials. Damn it, Zara hissed. She tapped her comms. Security team to portside airlock. Now. Non-lethal only. I want answers. Not a fight. She glanced at her crew. Talia, keep us moving. Ravi, with me. Ravi paled but nodded, grabbing a portable audio scanner as he followed her. The corridors of the stellar chorus echoed with their footsteps. The ship's hum a faint comfort against the unknown. Zara's mind raced. Had Silax sent a boarding party? A bomb? She'd faced death before, but this felt different, personal, like the universe was testing her resolve. They reached the airlock just as the security team arrived, stun batons at the ready. The outer hatch hissed open, revealing a shimmering membrane that pulsed like a living wound. Then, with a sound like tearing flesh, it parted, and a figure stepped through. It was no soldier. The creature was tall and slender, its body feathered in iridescent hues of blue and gold, its head crowned with a crest that quivered faintly. Its eyes were large, liquid black, and its beak-like mouth opened to emit a soft, mournful trill, a sound that hit Zara like a punch to the chest. She lowered her hand, signaling the team to stand down. Who are you? The creature tilted its head, its feathers rustling. When it spoke, its voice was a melody, translated by the ship's comms into halting English. I am Virthal, of the virus. Sent, as warning. Your defiance angers the Concorde. They will not relent. Zara studied him, her instincts warring with her caution. He didn't look like a threat. His frame was fragile, his movements slow, as if burdened by invisible chains. A warning? She said. Or a prisoner? Virthal's crest drooped, and he sang again, a haunting note that filled the corridor with sorrow. Both. My kind, we sing for them. Slaves to their will. They send me to show you, resistance is futile. Ravi stepped forward, his scanner beeping softly. Captain, that sound, it's layered. There's a frequency in it. Like a leash. They're controlling him. Zara's stomach twisted. She'd seen control before. Earth's warlords using tech to bend soldiers to their will. She'd sworn never to let it happen under her command. Can you break it? Ravi hesitated, then nodded. Maybe, if I can isolate the control signal. I could counter it, but it'll take time. Do it, Zara said, her voice firm despite the ache in her chest. She turned back to Virthal. Why help us? You're risking everything. Virthal's eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of something, hope. Perhaps, or defiance. Your song, it reached me. Through their walls. I have not heard freedom in too long. The words struck her like a blade. Freedom. She'd fought for it, lost for it, bled for it. She saw her brother's face again. His cockpit erupting in flames as she screamed into her radio. She hadn't saved him, but maybe she could save this one. You're not their puppet anymore. She said, you're with us now. Before Virthal could respond, the ship lurched, throwing them against the walls. Talia's voice crackled over the comms. Captain, they're back on us. The mimic's failing. They've figured it out. Zara steadied herself, helping Virthal to his feet. His feathers brushed her arm. Soft and trembling. Get to the bridge, she ordered Ravi. Use him, his voice. If they control with sound, we'll fight with it. They raced back, Virthal's trills echoing faintly behind them. On the bridge, the tactical display showed the bioships closing in. Their spines glowing hotter now. Primed to strike. Talia spun around as they entered. Shields at 5%. We're out of time. Zara ignored her, guiding Virthal to Ravi's station. Sing, she said, whatever they took from you. Take it back. Virthal hesitated, his crest quivering, then opened his beak. The sound that emerged was unlike anything Zara had heard, a cascade of notes. Raw and wild, rising and falling like a storm over an alien sea. Ravi patched it through his scanner, his hands shaking as he layered it with the ship's arrays. Amplifying now, 128 Hz. Full power. The stellar chorus roared with Virthal's song. A wave of sound that slammed into the bioships. Their tendrils spasmed, their hulls shuddering as if caught in a tempest. On the display, one vessel veered off course, crashing into another in a burst of green fluid. It's working, Ravi shouted, his voice breaking with relief. But Zara's eyes stayed on Virthal. His song faltered, his body trembling with exhaustion or pain. She knelt beside him, her hand on his feathered shoulder. Hold on, she whispered, we're not done yet. Outside, the Concorde fleet regrouped, their spines flaring brighter. Zara straightened, her resolve hardening. She'd lost too much to stop now. Virthal's cage was breaking, and with it, maybe hers too, but the fight was far from over. Chapter 4. Echoes in the Void. The stellar chorus trembled under the weight of Virthal's song, its arrays straining to carry the alien's wild, untamed melody into the void. On the bridge, Zara Khan watched the tactical display with bated breath, her hand still resting on Virthal's quivering shoulder. The bioships of the Celestial Concorde writhed in the distance, their tendrils flailing as the soundwave tore through their organic hulls. Green fluid sprayed into space, a testament to the chaos unfolding beyond the viewport. For a fleeting moment, Zara felt a surge of hope, a crack in the Concorde's invincible facade. It's working, Ravi Patel said, his voice a mix of awe and exhaustion as he monitored the audio output. Their biosignatures are destabilizing, 2 ships down. 3 more losing cohesion. Talia Voss grinned, her usual skepticism replaced by a rare flicker of triumph. I'll be damned, the music man's got teeth. But Zara's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The remaining bioships were regrouping, their spines pulsing with a fiercer glow, as if anger had replaced confusion. High Arbiter Silax's voice echoed in her mind. Your defiance hastens your end. She'd shaken them, but she hadn't broken them. Not yet. Status. She barked. Shields at 3%, Talia reported, her grin fading. Engines at half power. We can't take another hit. Captain. Zara's chest tightened. She glanced at Virthal, his crest drooping as his song faltered, his fragile frame swaying with exhaustion. He'd given them a chance, but it had cost him. She couldn't ask for more, not yet. Ravi, can we amplify it? Hit them harder? Ravi hesitated, wiping sweat from his brow. I can push the arrays to max. But it'll burn them out. We'd be defenseless after. Then we make it count. Zara said, her tone steel. She turned to Talia. Reroute everything, shields, life support, whatever's left. One shot, all in. Talia's eyes widened. Captain, do it. Zara cut her off, her voice low but unyielding. She'd lost too much to hesitate now. Her brother's face flashed before her, his cockpit erupting. Her screams useless against the roar of destruction. She wouldn't lose this crew. This ship. This fight. Not to Silax. Not to anyone. Talia muttered a curse but complied. Her hands flying across the console. The lights dimmed. The air growing thin as power surged to the arrays. Ravi adjusted his controls, layering Virthal's fading trill with a synthetic harmonic he'd pulled from the bio-signature. This is it, he said, his voice trembling. A full resonance blast, 128 Hz. Maximum amplitude. Zara nodded, stepping to the viewport. Now, the stellar chorus unleashed its voice, a deafening, resonant roar that shook the deck beneath their feet. The sound wave rippled outward, a tidal force of invisible fury. On the tactical display, the bioships buckled, their hulls split open like overripe fruit, tendrils snapping, spines shattering into fragments that drifted lifelessly into the void. One by one, they imploded, their organic forms unable to withstand the assault. Yes, Talia shouted, slamming a fist against her console. They're gone. Vanguard wiped out. Ravi slumped in his chair, a shaky laugh escaping him. I can't believe it. We turned a song into a weapon. But Zara didn't celebrate. She watched the debris scatter, her mind already racing ahead. Silax's words gnawed at her. Our enforcers are en route. This was just the beginning, a skirmish, not a victory. She turned to Virthal, who'd collapsed against the console, his breathing shallow. You okay? His black eyes met hers, dull with fatigue but alive with something new, gratitude. Perhaps. Your machine, it sang my freedom. He whispered, his voice a faint trill. But they will come again. Stronger. Zara knelt beside him, her hand gentle on his feathered arm. Then we'll be ready. What do you know about them? About the Concord? Virthal's crest quivered as he gathered his strength. They are unity, minds linked, bodies grown. Their ships live, breathe, obey. But my kind, we were their voice. Our songs, they twist them. Bind us. A frequency, an ancient one, controls all. Ravi leaned forward, his exhaustion forgotten. A frequency? Like the one they used on you? Yes, Virthal said, older than their ships. From before, when Virus sang free. Zara's mind clicked into gear. A control frequency, an Achilles heel buried in the Concord's biotech. If they could find it, amplify it, they might not just survive, they could fight back. Where's your home? She asked. Your people? Virthal's eyes dimmed with sorrow. Kirillus. A world of cages now. They silence us, but some still sing. In secret, Zara stood, her resolve hardening. She'd seen cages before, Earth's war zones, where hope was a luxury few could afford. She'd broken free then, and she'd break these now. Talia, plot a course to Kirillus. Fastest route. Talia blinked, her pragmatism kicking in. Captain, we're limping. Arrays are toast. Shields are gone. If Silax sends more, he will, Zara said, cutting her off. But we're not waiting to find out how many. We take the fight to them, on our terms. Ravi looked up, his face a mix of fear and admiration. Kirillus, if we free his people, their songs could be our edge. I can work with Virthal, build something bigger. Then start now, Zara said. She turned to the viewport, where the last remnants of the bioships floated like ghosts in the dark. The Concord had underestimated them, and that was their mistake. She wouldn't make the same one. The screen flickered, and Silax's eyeless visage appeared once more, his metallic limbs twitching with restrained fury. You destroy what you do not understand, he intoned. This is but a taste of our will. Your end approaches. Primitive. Zara stepped forward, her voice cold and steady. You hear that sound, Silax? That's us, and we're just getting started. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in silence. Zara glanced at her crew, Ravi, scribbling notes with renewed energy, Talia, grumbling but already plotting the course, Virthal, his crest rising slightly as he hummed a faint, defiant note. They were battered, outgunned, and out of their depth. But they were alive, and they had a weapon, one the Concorde couldn't silence. Full speed to Kirillus, Zara ordered, her eyes on the stars. Let's see what happens when a cage breaks. The stellar chorus lurched forward, its hull scarred but unbowed, carrying a fragile hope into the unknown. For Zara, it wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about proving that even in the vast, cold void, a single voice could echo loud enough to shake an empire. Chapter 5. The Silent Rebellion. The stellar chorus dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder, its battered frame groaning as it entered the orbit of Kirillus. From the bridge, Zara Khan stared through the viewport, her breath catching at the sight below. The planet was a jewel of muted colors, swirling clouds of violet and gold draped over continents of jagged stone, their edges softened by vast, shimmering seas. But the beauty was marred by the Concorde's presence. Orbiting biostations pulsed with green light, their tendrils snaking down to the surface like chains binding a captive world. Kirillus, Virthal whispered beside her, his voice a faint trill of longing and pain. His crest quivered, feathers catching the dim light of the bridge. Once, it sang. Zara's chest tightened. She saw her own past in his words, Earth's war-torn cities, where skies once blue turned gray with ash, where voices were silenced by force. She'd lost her brother to that silence, his fighter swallowed by fire as she watched helplessly from the ground. Now, looking at Kirillus, she felt that old ache stir again. It will sing again, she said, more promise than certainty. Talia Voss interrupted, her voice sharp with urgency. Captain, we've got incoming, 3 biopods from the nearest station. They're scanning us. Shields? Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. Dead, Talia said flatly. Arrays are fried too. We're a sitting duck. Zara cursed under her breath. The resonance protocol had saved them once, but it had left them vulnerable. She turned to Ravi Patel, who was hunched over his station, tweaking his audio scanner with Virthal's help. Anything left in that bag of tricks? Ravi glanced up, his eyes tired but bright with determination. Maybe. Virthal's given me a frequency, an old one, from before the Concorde. If we can broadcast it, it might wake something up down there. Wake what up? Talia snapped, her pragmatism clashing with his optimism. The virus, Virthal said, his black eyes glinting. My kin, they wear collars. Biolinks. The frequency, it calls to them, breaks the silence. Zara's mind raced. A rebellion from within, a chance to turn the Concorde's own slaves against them. It was risky, reckless even, but she'd built her life on reckless choices. Do it, she ordered. Talia, cloak us as best you can. Buy them time. Talia grumbled but set to work, rerouting what little power remained to mask their signature. Meanwhile, Ravi patched Virthal's voice into the ship's comms, his fingers trembling as he adjusted the signal. This isn't a weapon this time, he said, almost to himself. It's a message. Virthal straightened, his crest rising as he drew a deep breath. When he sang, it was softer than before, a mournful, lilting melody that carried the weight of centuries. The sound flowed through the stellar chorus, slipping past the hull and down to Kirillus like a whisper on the wind. Zara watched the planet, her heart pounding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, faint lights flickered on the surface, tiny, scattered sparks in the shadows of the Concorde's stations. What's that? She asked. Virthal's song faltered, his voice breaking with emotion. Them, they hear. The tactical display zoomed in, revealing clusters of virus emerging from underground warrens, their feathered forms trembling as they tore at the biocollars around their necks. The devices sparked and smoked, their green lights fading as the ancient frequency unraveled their control. Zara's breath caught. She saw children among them, small, fragile figures clutching each other, their crests fluttering as they sang back, their voices rising in defiance. They're fighting, Ravi said, his tone a mix of awe and disbelief. The collars, they're breaking. But the Concorde wasn't idle. The biopods shifted course. descending toward the surface as larger ships detached from the orbiting stations. Talia's console beeped a warning. "Captain, they've locked onto us. Incoming fire, 5 seconds. Zara braced herself, memories flooding back, her brother's ship spinning out of control, her hands useless on the controls of her own fighter. She'd failed him then, frozen by fear. Not this time. Evasive maneuvers, she shouted. "Get us low, into the atmosphere." The stellar chorus dove, its hull screaming as it plunged through Kirillus's clouds. Biospines streaked past, narrowly missing as Talia wrestled with the controls. "We're too slow," she yelled. "They'll shred us." "Not if we help them," Zara said, turning to Ravi. "The nanites, can they target the collars? Speed this up?" Talia's head whipped around. "The nanites? They're untested. I could lose control." "Then don't," Zara snapped. "Virthal's people are dying down there. We're their shot." Ravi nodded, already syncing the nanite swarm to his scanner. "I'll piggyback them on the frequency. They'll seek the collars, disrupt the bio-links." "Do it fast," Zara said, her eyes on the viewport as the planet's surface rushed up to meet them. The ship leveled out, skimming over jagged peaks as biospines rained down, one grazing the hull with a sickening screech. Ravi hit the execute key, and the nanites launched, a shimmering cloud streaming from the ship's vents. They rode Virthal's song, spiraling toward the virus below. On the display, the sparks of rebellion grew brighter, the collars shattering in waves as the nanites burrowed into their circuits. The virus surged forward, their trills rising into a chorus that echoed through the canyons. "It's spreading," Virthal said, his voice trembling with hope. "They sing, free." But the triumph was short-lived. The sky darkened as a massive bioship descended, its tendrils coiling like a storm cloud. Silax's voice boomed through the comms. Cold and unyielding. "You sow chaos. Primitive. Your interference ends now." Zara straightened, her fear giving way to fury. She saw the virus children again, their tiny voices defying an empire. She saw her brother, fighting to his last breath. "Talia, hold us steady," she said. "Ravi, Virthal, give me everything you've got. We're not done singing." The stellar chorus hovered amidst the chaos, its crew united by a single, unspoken vow: to break the silence, no matter the cost. Below, the virus rose, their songs clashing with the Concorde's wrath. Above, Silax loomed, a shadow of order against a rising tide of rebellion. For Zara, it was more than a battle, it was a chance to reclaim what she'd lost. One note at a time. Chapter 6. The Sound of Defiance. The stellar chorus hung low over Kirillus, its hull scarred and trembling as the massive bioship of the Celestial Concorde loomed above. Its tendrils unfurled like a storm breaking, casting shadows over the jagged peaks below where the virus sang their fragile rebellion. On the bridge, Zara Khan stood resolute, her eyes locked on the viewport. The air was thick with the hum of strained systems and the faint echo of Virthal's voice. A lifeline in the chaos. She could feel the weight of her crew, of the virus, of her brother's ghost, all resting on this moment. "Status," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. Talia Voss gripped her console, her face pale. "Engines at 30%. Nanites are still active, but we've got no shields. No weapons. That thing up there, it's charging something big." Zara glanced at the tactical display. The bioship's spines glowed a violent crimson, energy crackling along its organic frame. She'd seen firepower like that before, Earth's warlords unleashing plasma barrages that turned cities to ash. She hadn't saved her brother from it then, but she'd be damned if she let it happen now. "Ravi, Virthal, where's that anthem?" Ravi Patel turned from his station, his hands steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. He'd spent hours with Virthal, weaving the ancient virus frequency into a composition of his own, a fusion of human defiance and alien hope. In the camps, he'd played to survive, to forget. Now, he played to fight. "It's ready," he said, his voice firm for the first time. The resonance anthem, 128 Hz bass, layered with Virthal's harmonics. "If we broadcast it planet-wide, it'll hit every biolink at once." Virthal nodded, his crest rising with a flicker of pride. "My kin, they will sing with it. Break the chains." Zara met Ravi's gaze, seeing the boy from the camps transform into something more, a leader. A voice. How far can it reach? With the nanites boosting the signal? Ravi said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Far enough to shake the stars. Then shake them, Zara ordered. Talia, reroute all power to the comms. Everything we've got. Talia hesitated, her pragmatism warring with her loyalty. Captain, that'll kill the engines. We'll be dead in the water. We're dead anyway if we don't. Zara shot back. Do it. Talia muttered a string of curses but complied, her hands flying across the controls. The lights dimmed to a flicker. The hum of the engines fading into silence. The stellar chorus became a conduit, its every circuit pulsing with the anthem Ravi had crafted. Zara turned to Virthal. Sing with him. Make it theirs. Virthal stepped forward, his fragile frame trembling with purpose. He opened his beak, and the first notes spilled out, raw, mournful, then soaring. Ravi layered his synthetic tones atop it, a symphony of resistance that built into a crescendo. With a final nod, he hit the broadcast key. The resonance anthem erupted from the ship, a tidal wave of sound that rolled across Kirillus and beyond. The air vibrated, the deck quaking as the signal surged through the nanites still swarming the planet. Below, the virus responded, their trills rising from canyons and warrens. A chorus of thousands breaking free from their collars. The biolinks sparked and shattered, their green lights extinguished in waves. On the tactical display, the bioship flinched, its tendrils spasmed, its crimson glow faltering as the anthem tore through its systems. Smaller vessels orbiting the planet buckled, their hulls splitting open like cracked shells. Green fluid rained down, staining the violet clouds. Yes, Talia shouted, her voice hoarse. Their fleet's collapsing, half their signatures are gone. Ravi laughed, a sound of pure, unbridled joy. It's not just Kirillus, I'm picking up echoes from other systems. The signal's bouncing off their own relays. They're hearing it everywhere. Zara's heart pounded, but she kept her eyes on the bioship. It wasn't done. Its spines flared brighter, a desperate surge of energy coalescing at its core. Incoming, Talia yelled, and the ship fired, a beam of searing light that lanced toward the stellar chorus. Zara braced, but the anthem held. The nanites, still riding the signal, swarmed the beam, diffusing its power into a harmless shimmer. The bioship shuddered, its attack spent, and for a moment, silence reigned. Then Silax's voice cut through the comms. Colder than the void, you unravel order with noise, he said, his metallic limbs twitching on the screen. But chaos cannot stand. Our might will crush you. Zara stepped forward, her fear burned away by fury. She saw the virus rising, their song's defiance incarnate. She saw her brother, fighting to his last breath. And she saw herself, unbroken, unbowed. This isn't chaos, Silax, she said, her voice steady. It's freedom. You've built an empire on silence. But we're louder than you'll ever be. Stand down, talk, or lose everything. Silax tilted his head, his eyeless face unreadable. Talk? You presume equality with the Concord? I don't presume, Zara said. I prove. Your fleet's in pieces. Your slaves are free. What's left? The screen flickered, and Silax's form shifted, less certain. Perhaps, or calculating. You wield unexpected strength, he said, his tone softening, if only slightly. But this is not the end. We will return, and your noise will fade. The transmission cut out, and the bioship began to withdraw, its tendrils coiling inward as it ascended into orbit. Smaller vessels followed, their retreat a slow, wounded crawl. Zara exhaled, her body trembling with the release of tension. She turned to her crew, finding them staring at her, Ravi with pride, Talia with grudging respect, Virthal with gratitude. They're gone, Talia said, her voice quiet. For now, Zara echoed. She knelt beside Virthal, who'd slumped against the console, his feathers dull with exhaustion. You did it, your people, they're free. Virthal's eyes shone, his trill soft but clear. Not free, yet, but alive, singing. Ravi wiped his eyes, his smile shaky but real. That anthem, it's more than a weapon now. It's a call. Other worlds heard it. They're waking up. Zara stood, her mind racing. Silax's retreat wasn't surrender, it was a pause. The Concord would regroup, and when they did, they'd come with force. But the virus were rising. And Ravi was right. The Anthem had spread. She saw a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back, to build something new, set course for the nearest neutral system. She said, "We need allies, resources. This isn't over." Talia nodded, already plotting the jump. Ravi helped Virthal to a seat. His hands gentle. The stellar chorus limped away from Kirillus. Its hull battered but its spirit unbroken. Below, the virus sang on, their voices carrying into the void, a sound of defiance that refused to fade. For Zara, it was a victory, but not the end. She'd held the line, as her brother once asked. Now, she'd make the galaxy hear it too. Chapter 7. Harmony's Dawn. The stellar chorus drifted into the neutral system of Thalara, a cluster of asteroid rings and gas giants orbiting a dim orange star. Its hull bore the scars of Kirillus, scorched panels, dented plating, but its engines purred with a quiet resilience. On the bridge, Zara Khan leaned against the command console, her arms crossed as she watched the viewport. The silence was a stark contrast to the chaos they'd left behind. But it wasn't peace. Not yet. The virus were free. The Concord had retreated, but Silax's promise lingered like a shadow. "We will return." "Status," she said, breaking the stillness. Talia Voss glanced up from her station, her face etched with fatigue but steady. "Engines at 40%. Nanites are back online, running diagnostics. We're stable, Captain, but barely." Zara nodded, her gaze shifting to Virthal. The virus stood near the viewport, his feathers catching the faint light of Thalara's star. His crest was brighter now, a sign of recovery, and his black eyes held a quiet strength. "Your people," she said. "How many made it?" Virthal trilled softly, a note of hope threading through his words. "Many. The Anthem, it broke the collars. They hide now, in the deep caves, waiting for us." Zara finished, her voice firm. She'd seen the virus rise, children singing amidst the wreckage, elders tearing free of their chains. It was a spark, and she'd fan it into a fire. "Ravi, what about the signal?" Ravi Patel sat at his audio station, his headset dangling around his neck. He'd barely slept since Kirillus, his mind buzzing with the Anthem's echoes. "It's still spreading," he said, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "I've picked up responses, fragmented, but real. Other worlds, other species. They're hearing it, Captain. They're answering." Zara's heart lifted, though she kept her expression guarded. The resonance anthem had done more than break the Concord's grip on Kirillus. It had become a call, a ripple across the galaxy. She saw a chance to build something, a coalition, a defiance louder than any weapon. "Can we reach them? Organize?" Ravi nodded, his confidence growing. "With time. Yeah, I can refine the signal. Set up a network. Virthal's helping. His people have old songs. Codes we can use." "Good," Zara said. "Start now. Talia, prioritize repairs. We're not just a ship anymore, we're a beacon." Talia raised an eyebrow but didn't argue, her hands already moving across her console. Virthal stepped closer, his trill soft but clear. "You give us purpose. My kin will join. Others will too." Zara met his gaze, seeing the trust there, the kind she'd rarely earned, even on Earth. "Then let's make it official," she said. "A alliance. Free worlds. Free voices. No Concord. No cages." The idea took root quickly. Over the next hours, the crew worked with a fervor Zara hadn't seen since their first launch. Ravi and Virthal composed a new broadcast, a declaration of the Free Alliance, carried on the Anthem's frequency. Talia patched the ship's systems, grumbling about overworked nanites but delivering results. Zara coordinated, her mind sharp despite the exhaustion tugging at her limbs. She thought of her brother, his last words. "Hold the line," and felt a quiet resolve. She was holding it, and more. By the time the first responses trickled in, trills from Kirillus, static-laced messages from distant systems, Zara allowed herself a moment to breathe. She stood at the viewport, watching Thalara's rings glint in the starlight. When Ravi approached, a hollow pad in hand. "Captain, you need to see this." She took the pad, scanning the data, signals from a dozen worlds, some virus colonies, others unknown, pledging support. One message stood out, a melodic hum from a species calling themselves the Lythar, offering ships and resources. They're calling it a concert, Ravi said, his grin widening. A galactic one. First shows on us. Zara chuckled, a rare sound that softened the lines on her face. Then let's make it loud. But her moment of levity was cut short by an alert from Talia's console. Captain. Encrypted transmission. Point source. Close. It's Concord. Zara's stomach dropped. She nodded to Talia, who patched it through. The screen flickered, revealing High Arbiter Silax, not in his towering bioship, but in a smaller chamber. His metallic limbs still, his eyeless face almost contemplative. Captain Khan, he said, his voice quieter than before. You force reconsideration. Zara straightened, her crew tensing behind her. Reconsideration? She said, her tone edged with steel. You retreated, Silax. Your fleet's in tatters. What's left to reconsider? Silax tilted his head, a gesture that might have been curiosity. Your noise, it fractures us. Worlds we bound now turn. Voices we silenced now sing. The Concord debates. Zara's eyes narrowed. Debate? The Concord she'd fought was a monolith, unyielding. Absolute. Yet here was Silax. Speaking of cracks, you're losing control, she said. That's not my problem. It is. Silax countered, his tone sharpening. Your anthem spreads chaos. Our elders demand war, full force. No restraint. Others question. I question. The admission hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. Zara glanced at her crew. Ravi's wide eyes. Talia's clenched fists. Virthal's trembling crest. She turned back to Silax. Question what? Your empire? Your cages? Order, Silax said, his voice almost a whisper. We built it, millennia. Stability overall. You defy it. Thrive in it. Why? Zara paused, her brother's face flashing before her, his laughter. His courage. His end. Because order without freedom is a prison. She said, you locked the galaxy in silence. We're breaking it open. That's why. Silax was silent, his form motionless. Then, slowly, he spoke. Meet me. Neutral ground. No fleets. No weapons. Words, only. Why should I trust you? Zara asked, her voice cold. You should not, Silax said, but you will come, because you seek more than war. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Talia broke it first, her voice sharp. It's a trap, Captain. He's stalling. Maybe, Zara said, her mind racing. But he's right. I do want more. Peace. If we can get it. A chance to build, not just fight. Ravi stepped forward, his doubt clear. He's Concord. They don't bend. They didn't, Virthal said, his trill soft but firm. Until you sang. Zara looked at them, her crew, her allies, her family now. She saw fear, hope, trust. She saw her brother's smile, urging her on. Prep the ship, she said. We meet him, but we go ready for talk. Or for hell. The stellar chorus turned toward the coordinates Silax had sent, its crew united by a fragile dream. Beyond Thalara's rings, the Free Alliance took shape, worlds awakening. Voices rising. For Zara, it was a dawn she'd never dared imagine. A harmony born from defiance. Whatever came next, she'd face it with her line held firm. Chapter 8. The Treaty of Resonance. The stellar chorus settled onto the dusty surface of Nivera, a barren moon orbiting Thalara's largest gas giant. Its gray plains stretched endlessly under a sky streaked with faint auroras. A neutral ground chosen for its isolation. Zara Khan stood at the airlock, her navy jacket zipped tight against the thin atmosphere, her hand resting on a concealed stun pistol. She didn't trust Silax, not fully, but his words had planted a seed of possibility she couldn't ignore. Peace was a long shot, but she'd taken longer ones and lived. Ready? She asked, glancing at her crew. Ravi Patel nodded, clutching a holopad loaded with the Resonance Anthem's data. His eyes flickered with nervous energy. But his stance was firm. He'd come too far to falter now. Virthal stood beside him, his feathers gleaming despite the dim light. His trill a quiet hum of resolve. Talia Voss lingered near the controls, her expression a mix of suspicion and reluctant duty. I've got the nanites on standby, she said, One wrong move, and we're out. Good, Zara said. Let's see what he wants. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped onto Nivera's surface. 100 meters away, a sleek biopod rested, its organic hull pulsing faintly. High Arbiter Silax emerged alone, his metallic limbs glinting as he approached. No tendrils, no enforcers, just him. A solitary figure against the moon's desolation. Zara's grip tightened on her pistol, but she kept her face calm. Captain Khan, Silax said, his voice a low, resonant drone. You come armed. Habit, Zara replied, her tone dry. You come alone. That's new. Silax tilted his eyeless head, a gesture she'd come to recognize as contemplation. The Concord fractures. Your noise, your anthem, spreads dissent. Worlds we held for millennia now waver. I seek understanding. Zara studied him, searching for deception. His form was as cold and alien as ever. But his words carried a weight she hadn't expected. Doubt. Perhaps. Or curiosity. Understanding? She said. Or surrender? Neither. Silax said. A pause. The elders demand your annihilation. Others see potential. I stand between. Virthal trilled softly, stepping forward. You caged my kin. Silenced us. Why pause now? Silax turned to him, his metallic limbs still. Your songs, they pierce our order. We built unity through control, biolinks. Harmony enforced. You thrive without it. I question its cost. Zara's mind raced. She'd expected threats, not introspection. She saw her brother's face, his defiance against Earth's tyrants, his death for it, and felt a flicker of kinship with Silax's doubt. Order's fine until it chokes you. She said, we broke your cages because we had to. You can keep fighting, or you can talk. Your choice. Silax was silent, his form motionless. Then, slowly, he extended a metallic claw, projecting a holographic map. It showed Concord space, thousands of systems, dotted with red flares where the Anthem had sparked rebellion. Your voice travels, he said. Allies rise, Virus, Lythar, others. We cannot silence it, not without cost. Ravi stepped forward, his holopad glowing. It's not just noise, he said, his voice steady. It's freedom. Worlds are joining us, the Free Alliance. We're offering partnership, not war. Silax's claw retracted, the map fading. Partnership, he repeated, as if tasting the word. The Concord does not bend. But, I see merit, a treaty, coexistence. You keep your noise, your worlds. We keep ours. Zara's eyes narrowed. And the virus? The others you've chained? They choose, Silax said, a concession that surprised her. Those who stay, we rule. Those who leave, join you. It wasn't perfect. Half the galaxy would remain under Concord's grip, but it was a start. Zara glanced at Virthal, who trilled a note of cautious hope. Kirillus? He asked. Yours, Silax said, if you hold it. Zara exhaled, her decision crystallizing. She'd fought for freedom, not conquest. If Silax was offering a truce, she'd take it and build from there. We'll need it in writing, she said, terms clear, borders set, no interference. Silax nodded, his voice softening. Agreed. The Treaty of Resonance, named for your weapon. A fitting irony. The negotiation stretched into hours. Ravi transcribing terms onto the holopad while Virthal offered insights into Concord-controlled worlds. Talia monitored the biopod, her nanites primed, but Silax made no move to betray them. By the time the auroras faded, the treaty was done, a fragile pact of mutual recognition, open borders for defectors, and a promise of non-aggression. Zara signed first, her name a sharp scrawl on the holopad. Silax followed, his claw etching a biosignature that pulsed with green light. It is done, he said, but know this, the elders will test it, as will your alliance. We'll be ready, Zara said, her tone unyielding. She turned to her crew. Let's go home. The stellar chorus lifted off, leaving Silax standing alone on Nivera's surface. On the bridge, Ravi activated the comms, broadcasting the treaty's terms on the Anthem's frequency. Responses flooded in, trills from Kirillus, hums from the Lythar, cheers from human outposts. The Free Alliance was official, a coalition born from a single defiant song. Virthal approached Zara, his crest high. I am free, he said, his trill bright. Because of you. Zara shook her head. Because of us. You sang first. Ravi grinned, holding up his hollow pad. And they're still singing. Listen. The speakers crackled with a chorus, virus melodies. Lithar drones. Human voices weaving together. Talia, ever the cynic, smirked. Guess my nanites get a break now. Zara smiled, a rare warmth softening her features. She thought of her brother, his courage, his loss, and felt a weight lift. She'd held the line, and more, set course for Kirillus. She said, we've got a concert to plan. The stellar chorus turned toward the stars. Its crew united by a victory not of war, but of resonance. The treaty was a beginning, a fragile dawn, but it was theirs. And as the galaxy hummed with new voices, Zara knew they'd face whatever came next. Together. Chapter 9. A Song for the Stars. The stellar chorus descended through Earth's atmosphere, its hull gleaming under the golden light of a late afternoon sun. Below, the sprawling city of New Mumbai buzzed with life, skyscrapers piercing the clouds, airships drifting between them, and the faint hum of humanity rising like a heartbeat. Zara Khan stood at the viewport, her navy jacket unbuttoned, her dark eyes tracing the horizon. It had been months since Kirillus, since the Treaty of Resonance, and yet the weight of those days lingered, not as a burden now, but as a quiet strength. The ship touched down on a landing pad ringed by crowds, humans, Virus, Lithar, and others, their voices blending in a cacophony of welcome. Zara stepped onto the platform, her crew at her side. Ravi Patel carried a portable synth, his grin wide and unguarded. Virthal's feathers shimmered in the sunlight, his crest high with pride. Talia Voss trailed behind, her arms crossed but a faint smirk tugging at her lips. They'd fought, bled, and sung together, and somehow, they'd won. A young girl darted forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. Is it true? She asked, clutching a hollow pad. You made the stars sing? Zara knelt, meeting her gaze. Not me, she said. We all did. She thought of her brother, his laughter, his courage, and smiled. Want to hear it? The girl nodded eagerly, and Ravi stepped up, activating his synth. A soft trill spilled out, Virthal's melody, woven with human chords and Lithar drones. The crowd hushed, then joined in, their voices rising in a chorus that echoed across the city. Zara stood, her chest swelling with something she hadn't felt in years, peace. Later, in a classroom overlooking the landing pad, the crew faced a different audience, children of Earth and beyond, gathered for a cultural exchange. Virthal stood at the front, his frail form supported by a chair crafted by Lithar engineers, its frame pulsing with faint light. I am Virthal, he began, his trill clear despite his age. I come to learn and to teach. For centuries, my kin were silent. Now, we sing, a future open. Because of you. A boy raised his hand, his voice small but bold. Did the Concord really think you'd ruin everything? Virthal's crest quivered, a sound like laughter escaping him. They feared our noise, your noise. They thought it would break the galaxy. And it did, but not as they expected. The children leaned forward, captivated, as an airship landed outside, a Lithar vessel, its energy hull shimmering with colors no Concord ship would dare display. A girl with pigtails pointed at it. Why didn't anyone else try before? Virthal paused, his black eyes thoughtful. Some did, perhaps, and failed. Others lacked your spark, curiosity, defiance. Or maybe the stars waited for you. Zara watched from the back, her arms crossed, a quiet pride settling in her bones. She'd held the line, as her brother asked, but this was more, a legacy not of war, but of wonder. Across the galaxy, on Kirillus, a different scene unfolded. The planet's canyons glowed with new life, virus children danced among rebuilt warrens, their trills weaving with human tech songs broadcast from orbit. In Thalara, the Lithar hosted the first Galactic concert, their energy forms pulsing in rhythm with Ravi's Anthem, now a hymn of the Free Alliance. On a dozen worlds, species once silenced joined the chorus, some defecting from the Concord, others forging their own paths. Back on Earth, night fell over New Mumbai, and Zara stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Ravi joined her, his synth silent now, his eyes on the stars. "What's next?" he asked, his voice soft. Zara smiled, a rare lightness in her expression. "That's the best part. No one knows. We figure it out together." He nodded, pointing to the streets below. Children of Earth, Virus, and Lythar played under flickering hololights, their laughter mingling with a melody from a nearby school, a song born of human and alien minds. Adaptive and free. "It's not just politics," Ravi said. "It's this. Moments like that." Zara followed his gaze, her thoughts drifting to her brother. She'd carried his loss like a scar, a reminder of failure. Now, it was a spark, a reason to keep going. "Yeah," she said, "that's the real win." Far across the galaxy, on a Concord outpost orbiting a dying star, High Arbiter Silax stood alone. His bio-chamber pulsed faintly, its walls etched with the scars of debate. The elders raged in their halls, demanding war, but others, younger voices, listened to the anthem's echoes, questioning centuries of control. Silax turned to the viewport, his eyeless face fixed on the void. "Your noise persists," he murmured, his metallic claw twitching. Perhaps it must. He didn't know if the Concord could change. 12,000 years of order resisted bending, but the question lingered. A crack in his certainty. For now, the treaty held, a fragile bridge between two visions of the stars. On Earth, the twin moons rose, casting silver light over New Mumbai. Zara and Ravi watched as the Galactic concert's broadcast reached them, a symphony of 100 worlds. Each note a defiance, a dream, a promise. Talia joined them, her smirk softening as she leaned against the railing. "Guess we're stuck with the music man's noise," she said. "Guess so," Zara replied, her voice warm. Virthal's trill floated up from the streets, joined by human voices. Lythar hums, and more, a song for the stars. Unbound by any cage, the galaxy had shifted, not through force, but through resonance, a single ship's refusal to bow, a single voice daring to sing. Now, on Earth and beyond, people asked questions the Concord had forbidden. What if? They tried things deemed impossible, discovering that rules were guidelines, not absolutes. The lesson Zara had learned in the void now echoed everywhere, when faced with a universe of chains. The greatest strength was the courage to break them. As the concert swelled, Zara closed her eyes, her brother's voice a faint whisper in her mind. Hold the line. She had, and she'd built a new one, stretching to the stars. Whatever came next, war, peace, or something else, she'd face it with her crew, her alliance, her song. The stellar chorus rested below, its engines quiet, its journey complete. But above, the sky blazed with light and sound, a future open, undefined, and alive with possibility.